It is so hot in here right now and I could not get comfortable, so we're just officially sitting on the floor. That's where I'm at today. Hey y'all, my name is Nat. I hope you're having a terrific day today, and for this video we are doing the second part of the May the Force Read With You Readathon. So, May the Force Read With You is a Star Wars-based readathon that is taking place all month. I have already done a part 1 reading vlog, and I'll put a link to that in the cards over there. Go check it out. I read 4 books in that reading vlog, I believe, and I wrapped that one up. I was actually in the middle of Fire with Fire by Destiny 𝗖cie, Stay Sexy and Don't Get Murdered by Karen Kilgariff and Georgia Hardstark, and We Freed the Stars by 𝗖cie sais𝘁𝗁. Thus far, I have already finished Fire with Fire by Destiny 𝗖cie, and this was completing the prompt of Telekinesis, a book that you think will move you, and unfortunately, it was kind of a letdown. I got an arc of this off of NetGalley, and I was pretty excited about it because it sounded as though it was reminiscent to How to Train Your Dragon, and it actually kind of started to feel kind of like How to Train Your Dragon meets X-Men in the story, which sounds like something I'd really love, but unfortunately I just didn't really love the execution. In this story, we are following 2 sisters who are both being trained to become dragon slayers. However, something ends up happening and they end up on opposing sides of this ongoing war between dragons, slayers, and sorcerers. First off, I think one of the biggest issues I had with this is when I went into the story, I really thought I was going to be in a fantastical world because, you know, dragons, slayers, sorcerers, but it's more urban fantasy, so I was intrigued to see how that would work out, but unfortunately, I just don't think the world building was really done well enough, and magic was never fully explained in a way where I felt completely immersed in this world, which was a big drawback for me. I think the world building that was done was just so minimalistic that it never really felt as though this was truly a fantasy story because of it. Next, obviously, I absolutely love characters, and in this story we were alternating back and forth between the perspectives of Dani and Eden. Dani is the younger sister. She's kind of the screw-off. She manages to glide through and always do right, but really she doesn't take anything very seriously. She doesn't really want to be a slayer. She just wants to live a normal teenage life, whereas on the other side, Eden is determined to become perfect, but feels as though her family never really gives her the chance to showcase that she is ready to become a slayer. She also suffers from panic attacks and has some extreme jealousy for how easily Dani manages to glide through everything. It's very interesting how the main theme of this relationship is that the one thing that should be bringing them together is actually what's forcing them apart. Because of the dual perspective, I was already nervous that I would have a favorite, and I did. Even though Dani was kind of annoying at times, she was a teenager, but I really loved her. She was funny and she was very proud of who she was, whereas on the opposite side, I really didn't feel any sympathy for Eden. Even with her panic attacks and her struggle trying to show to her family that she was ready to become a slayer, I just never identified with her. She seemed incredibly heartless and narcissistic at times, and that was a real big drawback for me, particularly because we spend half of the book in her perspective. Some of the other characters throughout the story, though, Nox, who is the dragon, I really loved him. He is incredibly sarcastic and hilarious. His mindset was almost similar to what I imagine a cat's would be. Another character in the story, 𝗖cie, who was Dani's best friend in childhood, well, I didn't feel particularly strong towards her in any way. I did like the use she had in the plot and the discussion that came about because of her and Dani's relationship. I'm not going to go too far into it, but it did kind of start to touch on discussions of sexuality and things like that, and I actually wish it had been utilized more. Dani was an out and proud bisexual, and so we of course had to have a romantic aspect because it's a YA fantasy naturally, and I hated the romance portion. It was weird and creepy, kind of insta-lovey. It came out of nowhere. Although I was intrigued by the love interest, I just did not want him to be a romantic partner. Finally, the writing in this overall I think was pretty tell, not very show, and along with that, the pacing was so slow because I went into this thinking it was going to be in a fantastical world, and with the thought process of a ongoing war between dragons, slayers, and sorcerers, I thought there'd be a ton of action, but actually there's really not. I don't think any serious, like, fun adventuring scenes truly happened until maybe 80% done. This meant that the story dragged out a lot, and in the end I just felt like it was pretty predictable. In the end, this one fell pretty flat for me. My Cawpile rating I believe was like 2.8 stars, so for my own rating I am gonna round it up to 3 stars, but 'tis a shame. Next, I am more than halfway through Stay Sexy and Don't Get Murdered. This is for Corrupted, which is a book with a black cover. The dust jacket is over there, but I promise you it's black. This is a dual memoir with Karen Kilgariff and Georgia Hardstark, who both are the creators of My Favorite Murder, which is a true crime comedy podcast. That sounds like an odd combination, but it actually works very well. This is also a reread for me. I loved this the first time I read it. It was a 5-star, and I am hoping to reread it and see if my feelings are the same. Thus far, I am still really enjoying this. I do think, I'm not sure if it's quite 5-star material again, just because there are a few chapters here and there that kind of drag. There's truly just so many lines and important moments that these women share with us that like people can relate with and glean their own piece of advice from. There are still a good few chapters that I feel are just a bit like filler content and don't really match the rest of the feeling of the book. However, even with that, I am still really enjoying this. I love that you can actually feel the same voice of these women in book form just as well as you can when you're listening to the podcast, because they're just so truly and unapologetically themselves. Finally, I've also been working on We Free the Stars by 𝗖cie bych. I'm about 200 pages into this brick and I am truly adoring it, but it's a slog to get through because it's so big. That's not because of the writing, that's just because I'm terrified of big books. So this one is actually fulfilling a companion, which is Galactic Empire, a book that is more than 500 pages. This one is pushing 600, so yeah, I can't really talk too much about this because this is the second book in a duology, but we are following 𝗖cie and Nasir and Altair where things ended in the first book. And I guess the one thing I can discuss most is just I adore the romance in this. It has pulled at my heartstrings so much. She has faked me out a good few times now and like, it hurts, but it keeps me so engaged, and I can't wait to get to the end of this when these two characters just get their shit straight and finally figure things out. I can't wait for it. Along with that, I am enjoying more additions to the world. We are getting to travel farther than Shar, which was where Nasir and 𝗖cie originally met in the first book. As you can see, like any good fantasy, 𝗖cie bych has created an entire world, and so we are getting to see some of these other portions of the country, and I am really enjoying that. Also, some additional characters have been introduced, which are fantastical. They are Safi, which I believe are her version of like elves, kind of. They're magical beings, they have pointy ears, they live longer than humans. They're really interesting. I like getting to see them. They have such a contrast with some of the humans in this story, even though some of them do have their own magical abilities. It's really interesting to see how their magics differ. Okay, so that is it for now. I will probably finish Stay Sexy and Don't Get Murdered first, unsurprisingly, given I only have like 100 more pages. This one I have 400 more pages. I am going to be going over to Josh's this weekend. We are going to a Renaissance fair at some point, probably tomorrow, maybe Sunday, I'm not sure. We got like open tickets. Very excited for that because I've never been to the Renaissance fair and I just think it's gonna be really fun. The theme for this weekend is pirates and mermaids and I'm so excited, guys. Like, I love pirate stories. Okay, so that is it for now. I will check in with you guys later when I have hopefully completed another book or maybe picked up something new. Who knows? I don't know why I'm sitting on an angle, but I'm staying like this, yeah. Hey guys, what is up? So guess who has officially hit the rank of Emperor? Yep, that's me. Oh, I mentioned in my last update that Josh and I were going to a Renaissance fair, and while we were there, we got henna tattoos, and they had the Mandalorian crest, so I had to do it. You know. I officially finished Stay Sexy and Don't Get Murdered by Karen Kilgariff and Georgia Hardstark, and I did really enjoy this again. I'm so glad I reread it because I finally took the time to tab up a bunch of lines. I found some new ones that I didn't highlight the first time around. But with that, I don't know if I would quite rate this 5 stars again. I did still really enjoy it, and as I said, found many things to take away, but I think this did kind of have a rambling aspect in certain situations that, while I don't mind in podcast form, did seem a little odd physically reading it. As I mentioned previously, you really can just get a feel of both Karen and George's voices in their writing just as well as you can in the podcast, and I love that about them. It just didn't always below the best for the story. Not really story, but the memoir, the chapters, the layout of the book. Even with that, I did still really enjoy this one overall, and actually, I think I might have gotten an idea for a new secret TBR. I have no idea when that will come to fruition, but yeah, as I read this, I found myself laughing and smiling, but also tearing up. These women really just kind of put all of their heart and soul into this book and truly are trying to show people life lessons from the experiences they have had so that other people don't have to deal with some of the terrible, awful things they have. I think it's really impressive how these women have taken many of their experiences and managed to shape them into stories that fit so well with the different well-known lines from the podcast that they have said, such as "Stay out of the forest, you're in a cult, call your dad, buy your own shit." All these quotes just sound like one-liners that are really funny. In reality, each of them just have such a backstory, and I loved watching these ladies reveal that and show us what each of them really mean to Karen and Georgia. It's just great. I loved it. Like I said, I don't think I would quite give it 5 stars again. Like 1 or 2 chapters here or there just weren't really for me. I did have kind of a lull where it's sort of hard to see, but like when I was tabbing, you can see there's this one section that there was nothing for a while, and not all of that was a lull, but there were certain sections that were mostly in that space that were lulling. Lulling, is that a word? I don't know. We're working with it. In the end, I do think I would still give this like 4.5 stars because again, I totally enjoyed my time. I don't regret rereading it, but like maybe just not quite as amazing upon further reflection. Because I finally finished that baby, I can now actually start on more of my companions, and I already started on this one. I told you about it in my last one, but I've been reading more of it, and guys, it's so good. We Free the Stars by 𝗖cie ~sais~𝘁. This woman has certainly become one of my new favorite authors. Her writing is just, it's magnifique. It is so evocative, and it truly furthers the story while still being so flowery and gorgeous. It's such a balance to manage, and she does it so well. I love this book. And again, I'm like halfway through, and I can already tell this is definitely going to be 5 stars. It would be so hard for her to ruin this 5-star rating already. I'm currently at chapter 50, and the number of emotions I have had in the last 10 chapters, because my best friend already finished this, so naturally anytime something happens, I have to Snapchat her and be like, hey, I'm not okay. And I had to do that 6 times today. I've said it once, I've said it a million times, but I'm gonna say it again. The tension is so good. There is a scene where Nasir has to cut Zafira's palm, and the amount of tension in that is still amazing. How is she making the scene so oddly romantic and sensual, but like he's literally cutting her palm open? It's impressive. It is so impressive. Action scenes are also just so fun and so fast paced and really just kept me blasting through. I was listening to the audiobook when I was driving over to Josh's on Friday, and I hit a particularly shocking cliffhanger on a chapter, and may I just tell you, it was really hard not to grab up the book and continue reading when I walked inside, because right when I hit that cliffhanger was right when I got to his house, and it was like, can't keep reading. We have to do things. I think next, I'm probably gonna start on An Ember in the Ashes after this. I'm gonna put my full force into finishing this one just because it's so big and like it has taken me a good while to get through it, plus I'm just devouring it. But I also want to start on the series, and I'm not 100% sure or not if I'm going to continue, and given that I am making June reading plans, I need to figure that out. So yeah, this book is fulfilling the Chosen One prompt, which is the group read, because, you know, Chosen One, Anakin, had to do it. All I know about this is it's following 2 people who are on opposing sides, but end up working together to form some kind of a rebellion against their empire. I don't know if it's an empire per se, but you know what I mean. I don't know a ton about this. I don't want to know a ton about this because this is a extremely loved book, so there's a ton of hype about it, and as we've learned, hype can sometimes really kill my thoughts on books. What with 𝗖cie ~sais~𝘁. So not letting the hype get to me, trying to stay as blind as possible, not something I normally like to do, but here I am. That's it for now. Hopefully I'll be updating you guys when I have finished We Free the Stars here soon, because I would love to do that. Okay, talk to you guys later. Hey guys, so a lot to talk about today because first off, I finished out We Free the Stars officially, and I'm saying this now, anything this woman writes, I will buy, because this was amazing. This was everything I wanted from this book. The ending was so perfect, I cried. I'm gonna, full transparency here, I cried. It was so good. She even gave me stuff I didn't know I wanted, but then as soon as I read it, I was like, yep, this is everything I needed. Thank you. Thank you for giving this to me. So good. The writing is just elegant and delicious, and that's not a thing to call writing, but I'm sticking with it. It's got well-placed humor. It keeps the story flowing very well. Whenever there's an action scene, it is so engaging and enthralling. It's just going fast and hard. Then at the same time, this was just a roller coaster for my emotions, and I'm still not okay when I think about it too hard. The ending. So good. So good. Oh my gosh, I'm probably gonna reread that. Many of these tabs are just different portions where it's like, I'm gonna want to reread this eventually, so this makes it easy to find. These characters just continued to be amazing. I loved them the entire way through. They were fantastic. The slow burn romance in this story is one of the best I've ever read. Also, Lana, we got to see more of her. She is Zafira's little sister, and she is everything I've ever wanted in a sassy little sister. She was hilarious. We also got to see more of Kifa, who I think is officially now my spirit animal, and is asexual, so we got some nice ace representation there. Love that. Literally at no point in this was I bored. I cried, I laughed, I squealed, I screamed. I'm gonna be recommending this to everyone I know now. I actually have already declared this my official favorite fantasy. Here I am saying it again. Favorite fantasy. Get ready for me to never shut up about this series, because I won't. Okay, after that, I think I might have mentioned in my last clip that I was considering picking up An Ember in the Ashes next. Well, I'm a dirty liar. I didn't do that. Instead, I decided to pick up Fix Her Up by Tessa Bailey. This was to fulfill the prompt First Order, the first book in a series, and this is the first in the Hot and Hammered series, which is also the series pick for the second quarter of the year in the Sugar and Spice book club. Already going into this, I was a little hesitant just because of some reviews I had seen, but with that, I have to say I was really impressed that this had me laughing very quickly, because this book starts with the female main character throwing ice cream at the male one. Yeah, she throws a whole carton of melted ice cream on him, then a box of lo mein. What a way to start a book. However, eventually, we ended up getting into the actual romance bits, and I concur with all the other reviews I read. This did have misogynistic undertones. The romance was really cringy, not just a little, it was really cringy. It was also kind of creepy. I got to about 34% in the audiobook. I've officially decided to DNF this. I just can't do it. Also just realized I never even gave you guys an official summary. So this is a romance, obviously, bouncing back and forth between the two perspectives of our female main character, Georgie. She is the youngest in her family. She has not been taken seriously for most of her life, and she is wanting to officially show her family that she is a grown-up. She has been madly in love with her brother's best friend since she was younger, and that is Travis, who is now essentially a washed up baseball star and is having to return to his hometown and try and make a living again. First off, pretty early on, Travis just had so many like little misogynistic microaggressions against women. Also, Travis's nickname was Two Bats. I'm gonna let you put that one together on your own. It was kind of funny the first time, I guess. And then it just became a reoccurring joke and it wasn't funny anymore. It was weird. He starts to realize like, oh, Georgie's kind of hot now. And every single time he sees her in his head, I can't see her romantically. She's like my little sister. But at the same time, I'm gonna sit here and check her out. And that's weird. That's really weird. I have 3 older brothers. That made me feel so uncomfortable. Look, can we not connect that? That's a little too close to like the weird step sibling porn out there. Oh, also Travis's entire personality is like super alpha male, controlling. In the little bits we see of him and Georgie, he gets jealous of the other men around her. This one did really annoy some people. It does kind of annoy me. His pet name of choice for her is Baby Girl. Growing up, my best friend called her dog Baby Girl. That was literally how she constantly referred to her dog, was her baby girl. In my mind, every time he said that, I just saw Georgie as a dog. As if this wasn't weird enough with the step-sibling porn. Sibling relationships weren't healthy here. Georgie didn't have a great relationship with her family because she thought they were never taking her seriously. Travis had a weird relationship with his best friend because he just kept reoccurringly commenting that if he were to let slip to Georgie's older brother that they were hanging out together, it would be a really big deal. It would be a really bad thing. He was gonna get punched. He was gonna die, like something serious, and he's your best friend. Maybe just try talking to him. I don't know, my brother and I are fairly close. Like, I consider some of my brother's friends my friends, so I don't think it's that far of a stretch to say I'd hang out with my brother's friends. I really didn't understand that. I don't get that mindset. It doesn't compute here. After all of that, I ended up deciding to give up on this book. Sorry, that got really rambly, but that's kind of what vlogs are for, right? I am a little scared to try more of Tessa Bailey's stuff after this. Not a great start, but the second book is supposed to be from the point of view of Georgie's friend, and I think it's with her husband, and it's a second chance romance kind of situation where they're trying to fix their marriage. And I do love second chance romance, so I might give her a second chance with that one. See what I did there? And so now I actually am going to try An Ember in the Ashes. I started on the audiobook already when I was driving home from work. And ironically, the voice actors for these audiobooks are the same people. Basically, we are bouncing back and forth between two perspectives. One is a woman whose brother, I believe, is going to get kidnapped by the Empire, and I assume she must get involved in some kind of a rebellion to get him out or something. And then on the other side, we are seeing from, I think his name was 𝗖cie, who is a army man or something? He's been trained by the Empire and fights for them, but he doesn't believe in what they fight for and is actually planning to desert. I assume at some point they are going to come together, form their own rebellion, join a rebellion, do something with a rebellion, who knows? That's where I'm at right now with that one. Anyway, I will talk to you guys later, maybe when I finish this, probably when I finish this. I think the only other book I have on my list is The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner, though it is actually the 27th, so there's only like 5-ish days left in the month, and I have 2 books for this readathon, and then I just have another book that I'm kind of reading also. We'll see if I can finish all 3 of those by the time I need to have this video done. Who knows? We'll see. Cool. Talk to you guys later. Hey guys, so last update today. You know how I told you that I was going to work on An Ember in the Ashes? Well, apparently you can't take anything I say seriously anymore because that didn't happen. Actually, I do kind of have an excuse this time around. I ended up deciding to do a buddy read of this with Dasha over at Mythic Pages, and I'll put a link to her in the description down below if you're interested in following her. So because of that, I'm giving her a little bit of time to catch up where I currently am, and instead this will probably get pushed into June. Don't trust anything I say when it comes to TBRs, you should know this. However, instead, I did end up starting on the audiobook as well as physically reading The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner, and I am actually over halfway in already. This has been pretty good. I've been listening to it for most of today thus far. It's a nice rainy day. It's Memorial Day, so I don't have work. In this, we are bouncing back and forth between 3 perspectives. The first one, Caroline, is in the present time. She just recently found out her husband has been cheating on her, and she kind of ran away to London on what was supposed to be a romantic vacation for the 2 of them. She ends up coming across this little apothecary bottle, and she used to be a big history buff. I think that's what her undergrad was history. So she is starting to investigate it and look into the history behind it. That's been pretty interesting. I do feel a lot for her. I think the writing around her is very sympathetic and it's very easy to empathize with her. Along with her, however, we also have Nella, who is the owner of this lost apothecary in the 18th century. Nella is an older woman and she has been running this apothecary for quite some time now. She initially learned the trade from her mother. However, Nella has since transitioned it into sort of a underground network for women where they can seek Nella out and she will give them a poison to take care of any man in their life that is causing them harm or might possibly be harming them adjacently, if that makes sense. Nella does have a bit of a tragic backstory, which I also think makes her very empathizable. Sympathizable? You understand what I'm saying. So there's a nice connection between Nella and Caroline there. And then finally, the last perspective is Eliza, who is this young girl, and she actually works for a woman in the 18th century who sent her to find Nella. And she is so fascinated by all of the poisons, even though she is a little scared that she is being basically asked by her mistress to kill someone, but she's also fascinated by it. She ends up going back to Nella and is basically offering to become her apprentice. So in that specific perspective, it almost feels sort of similar to The Witch's Daughter by Paula Braxton that I read a while back, where it sort of had that same aspect, except in that one it was witchcraft, whereas in this it's apothecary work. I am really curious to see how the relationship between Nella and Eliza is going to progress as the story finishes out. Thus far, I wouldn't really call them master and apprentice, but Nella does definitely care for Eliza and has sort of taken her under her wing in like a very specific scenario that occurs. Thus far, I just really love that all of the biggest main characters in this have been women, including the other side characters. There are obviously men, but across the board, it's mostly all women, so it's definitely got that whole feminist girl power feel going on, and I love that. One thing with this that isn't nearly as strong as I would probably prefer is in the historical timelines, the setting isn't very immersive. If just going on setting alone, I wouldn't really be able to tell whether we are in current time versus past time. That's one thing with historical fiction I've learned that I really like if we are bouncing back and forth, is to have a well-developed setting, which makes the atmosphere much more obvious of which time period you're in, and I think it just makes the story all that more immersive and enthralling. But even with that, I am still really enjoying this thus far. Like I said, honestly, I'm not sure who I would say my preferred point of view is, because I do like different aspects of each of them. I think Caroline's is probably the one where I can obviously connect with her the most because current timeline, like that makes sense. I'm also just fascinated by Nella's story, and I think has a very interesting aura about her that makes me want to learn more. Eliza's pretty naive and on the younger side, so obviously kind of hard to connect with, but at the same time, the author's definitely playing on that like irony aspect of us knowing things and she doesn't, and you kind of just can't help but be like, oh, sweetie. All right, so unfortunately, for the sake of finishing out this video and getting it posted for you guys, I don't have any ending review to give you. I'm so sorry because I kept bouncing around other books. I've also been reading another book that wasn't for this readathon, which is why I haven't really been talking about it, but I've been very engaged with that one also. Thank you so much to all of the people who put on this readathon. I thought it was a wonderful idea, and I'm really glad I vlogged it because this was very fun, and I think it encouraged me to keep working through a bunch of these books. I did pretty well. I might possibly manage to finish this one today, honestly. We'll see. But that means I had 2 DNFs in the end. I only have 1 book left that was on my TBR that just hasn't gotten finished, which was An Ember in the Ashes. Ironically, was the group book. I don't know why I keep putting it off. I just do. All right, y'all. So as always, thank you so much for coming to my channel today, guys. I really appreciate it. Make sure to hit like and subscribe down below. I come out with videos on Monday and Friday, but until then, I hope you continue to have a terrific day. Bye.